today we are going to be learning about some pretty messed up weapons that even the military made illegal.
War is dirty business, and in the aftermath of the First World War, the nations of the world moved to limit the scope of its destructive impact. Horrified by the mass casualties inflicted by chemical gas attacks, in 1925, at the initiative of the United States, France, and Poland, the League of Nations drafted the Protocol for the Prohibition of the Use in War of Asphyxiating, Poisonous, or Other Gases and of Bacteriological Methods of Warfare. In essence, international law forbade the use of chemical or biological weapons in war. Since then, other weapons have been added to that list, all with the intent purpose of limiting human suffering or damage to the Earth itself. Without further ado, here are the top 10 banned weapons of war. Number 10, mustard gas. First synthesized in 1822, it wasn't until 1860 that the dangerous properties of mustard gas were documented. As a chemical weapon and dubbed the king of the battle gases, mustard gas is surprisingly the least lethal of all the various chemicals that were used in World War I, and it's estimated that only about 1 to 5% of the people exposed to it were killed.
Oh, that's fine,
Mustard gas's real power lay in the terror it could sow among enemy troops, as well as the incapacitating effect exposure had on unprotected soldiers. Inhaled into the lungs, it could be fatal, but while a gas mask would protect from inhalation, there was nothing soldiers could do to protect their exposed skin. The effects of exposure were not immediate, but within hours, the skin would begin to blister, specifically in moist areas such as the armpits and genitals. As the blisters popped, they would often become infected, which is where mustard gas became one of the most lethal gas weapons ever used. Infection typically kills more soldiers in war than actual combat does. Worst of all, exposure created sensitivity, and further exposure at even lower doses would cause a reaction. Number 9, chlorine gas. Another of the gases used extensively in World War I, it was first deployed by the Germans at Ypres on the 22nd of April 1915. Though an 1899 treaty had forbidden the use of gas in war, the Germans sidestepped the wording in the treaty by releasing the gas from canisters, not projectiles, as outlined in the treaty.
Planning to release the gas from their we have a treaty that no one's going to use it. Yeah. Ultimately, if a country's like, oh yeah, we want to take over the world or take over an area. Are they really going to listen to a treaty?
And it's like, okay, we're going to use it. What are you going to do? Go to war with us? You're already at war with us.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
You know what it probably is? Well, nowadays, it'll be if it's two countries fighting and one of them's been too naughty, then other countries will then react against them because you'll be like, fucking hell, you're taking it too far now. If they stay within the rules.
Calm down, you two, or someone's going to get hurt.
Until the wind turned towards the French forces and then let the heavier-than-air gas drift across no man's land and sink into the French trenches. The attack was successful, and 100 French troops were killed. Chlorine gas irritates the eyes, nose, lungs, and throat, and in high enough concentrations can fill the lungs and funnel by asphyxiation. Though seen as a horrific weapon of war, the Germans argued that the intent was to actually shorten the length of the war and thus limit overall suffering.
That's crazy. They just let it drift over. Just waited till the wind's blown their way and just sent it in like a secret little sneak attack.
Phosgene gas. Mustard gas may have been dubbed the king of the battle gases, but when it comes to sheer lethality, no other gas used in World War I could top phosgene. Colorless and smelling like moldy hay, not an uncommon smell in the trenches of Europe, most troops did not realize they had even been exposed.
What was World War I? Because World War II was Hitler. What were the Germans mad about in World War One? What was that?
Assassination of. Didn't it start with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand? Was that World War II?
I thought that was a band.
Same.
Archduke Franz Ferdinand got assassinated, and he was presumptive heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne.
So why are they called Franz Ferdinand? Like, that seems like a really random person to name yourself after.
Yeah, this is mad complicated.
Shit went down. Shit went down.
I'm trying to TLDR it, but yeah, a man got shot and then shit hit the fan.
A slow-acting gas, victims' lungs would fill with fluid, and after a day or two, would suffocate to death. No treatment existed at the time, and the best a medic could do is make victims comfortable. Although the Germans were the first to use phosgene, it became the weapon of choice for the Allies and would ultimately be responsible for 85% of the 1.2 million casualties of
Jesus Christ.
Imagine you're the guy that discovered that could kill people. And you're like, right, let's put it into production, and like 1 million people have like had a horrible death because of it. The world used to be tapped. It still is.
It used to be.
It still is, but my goodness.
Number 7, nerve gas. In 2017, 100 people, including children, were killed in a nerve gas attack in Syria by pro-government forces, with hundreds left injured. An independent investigation later identified the culprit as sarin gas, a highly lethal nerve agent. Banned by international treaty, nerve agents are some of the most lethal forms of chemical warfare weapons and work by disrupting the ability for nerves in the body to transmit chemical messages between each other. Colorless, tasteless, and odorless, the first sign of exposure is uncontrolled drooling from the mouth, followed by foaming.
VX is one of
nausea
these.
and stomach cramps follow, along with uncontrollable urination and diarrhea. Eventually, the victim's lungs become paralyzed, leaving them unable to breathe. Number 6, plastic landmines. Landmines have been around for centuries, albeit in very crude fashion. Some of the first ever used were by the Chinese during the Song dynasty against an assault by the Mongols. Filling cast iron cannonball shells with gunpowder, they had an extremely long fuse which had to be lit by hand by brave ambushers just hundreds of feet away from the enemy. Modern landmines are completely autonomous and can vary in tripping mechanisms from pressure
landmines a long day as well, bro. Stuffing on one of those things.
Of the metal detector, landmines were designed using plastic in order to avoid detection.
I know. I'm trying to think which is worse.
The difficulty in locating fragments via X-ray by treating physicians. This would cause prolonged suffering and was ultimately seen as inhumane.
Why did they just
Number 5.
Out?
I don't know.
Biological weapons.
I don't know.
Though around for nearly the entire time that man has waged war against itself, biological weapons were only recently banned under international law. Most biological weapons take the form of weaponized disease agents, such as bacteria and viruses, but they can also include fungi, toxins, and rickettsiae, parasites that normally affect arthropods, but can be deadly in humans. Modern conventions don't just protect people from biological weapons, but actually prohibit their use against plants and animals as well, preventing nations from engineering plagues that can wipe out a nation's livestock or crops and thus creating famine.
That would be a good tactic, you know, because you're not directly killing the people. You infect all their cows, infect all their sheep.
Why are you saying this like you got a thought in the back of your head?
Well, no, I think it's quite clever. It's not. I mean,
it's like in the olden days when they used to siege castles and they'd cut off supplies to the castles and then the people inside would starve and they'd have to surrender.
Number 4, flamethrowers.
Oh, yes.
Made famous for their use in
These
World
are
War II
banned.
Vietnam, flamethrowers were the answer
What a
to
disgrace.
combating enemies entrenched inside fortified bunkers or underground tunnels. In these confined spaces, flamethrowers can actually be more lethal by sucking the oxygen out of the atmosphere than from their actual flames. While technically not illegal, their use around civilian areas has been banned due to the incredible damage they can inflict on infrastructure and their inability to be properly aimed. Number 3, napalm. Another weapon made famous by the Vietnam War, napalm was actually developed in 1942 at Harvard University. As a mixture of a gelling agent and some kind of fuel such as gasoline, napalm was originally designed to be used as an incendiary device against buildings, but was later primarily used as an anti-personnel weapon. As the sticky substance sticks to the skin, it produces severe burns, and sharing in many of the same characteristics.
What's it called? A flame?
Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, is it like that? And then you just put it.
But that uses not really.
No,
that uses
alcohol
as a fuel. This is like, imagine like it's like a sticky fire substance.
Oh,
so,
you'd be.
So like you try and stop, drop and roll, and you just carry on. It will stay on you and stay on fire. Like,
as a flamethrower, it can also make it impossible for individuals to breathe. Though not outlawed for military use, its use in civilian population centers is illegal, once again due to their propensity for incredible property damage and inability to fully control its effects. Number 2, poison bullets. Early bullets weren't very accurate or powerful, so militaries around the world would spike them with small amounts of poison or fecal matter. While not adding any immediate lethality,
a poison bullet. Imagine going home and be like, oh yeah, I got shot with a poo bullet.
I mean, you'd probably become very infected very quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'll fuck your day up.
It becomes septic as quickly as possible. Like,
I died to poo.
Yeah, genuinely.
It wasn't the bullet that killed him, it was the molecule of shit that was on it that did it.
Deliver toxic compounds deep into the body and result in serious infection that would set in long after a battle took place. In modern projectiles, the addition of poison
should be
would
banned,
largely
bro.
pointless as well, as modern bullets are already devastatingly powerful. Because of the lack of immediate lethality and suffering caused long after a conflict is over, poison bullets have long been banned by international law. And finally, number 1, dirty bombs. Nuclear weapons are bad enough, and the international community has been unsuccessfully trying to ban them since their inception. Nuclear weapons are primarily designed to destroy military or civilian targets, yet to achieve maximum explosive impact, they are detonated high above their target where the pressure wave can spread. This has the side effect of causing most of the radiation released to be harmlessly blasted up into space or dispersed over a very wide area, limiting its effect. A dirty bomb, however, is a device that is designed primarily to create radiological fallout rather than kill outright, with the goal of poisoning land, sea, and air for a very long time. A regular nuclear weapon can be converted into a dirty bomb by simply programming it to detonate at ground level, thus creating massive plumes of radioactive debris and irradiating dozens of square miles. However, other devices, such as a cobalt bomb, can be detonated high up in the air and produce tremendous amounts of radioactive fallout. These dirty or salted bombs have long been banned due to the long-lasting and catastrophic damage they do to large swaths of the environment. Man has waged war since his inception, but it's only in the last few centuries that we've begun to try and limit the scope of the destruction that we inflict on each other. As technology progresses and makes more apocalyptic and destructive weapons available, perhaps it's a sign of hope that even the most embittered enemies, such as the Soviet Union and the USA, have abided by these international laws. Maybe one day we can even move to outlaw war altogether.
Why can't someone work, instead of working on like a nuclear weapon, why can't they work on like a reverse nuclear weapon, where you take away the radiation?
I'd imagine they are, but...
And I feel like the damage is already done, though. By the time it can be activated, it's already fucked. To build it quicker.